Hello and welcome to Rainbow History Class, the queer and trans history that you probably don't get in school. My name is Rudy Jean Rigg.
And my name is Hannah McElhinney. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for checking us out. Look, if you haven't already, chuck us a follow on Spotify. It really helps us out, as well as on anywhere that you listen to us, or if you're watching us on YouTube.
Turns out it really, really helps. And we've been made aware of how much of a difference people actually hitting follow or subscribe makes.
Anyway, that is our little plug right up the top of the episode. Now you won't hear any of that crap anymore. Let's kick off. Let's dive into it. Today we're talking about pirates. Now this came up in my life because I recently rewatched Pirates of the Caribbean or the Caribbean. I don't know.
It's weird because I was having this conversation literally last night about Pirates of the Caribbean and how for some group of people, the ultimate coming of age film was Twilight. But before that, there was Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I feel like they fulfilled the same pop cultural hole.
I think so. I watched it and I was saying to Luke, my partner, I was like, we both agreed that the film was I don't know when it was made. Let me just check.
I think 2003?
I think it's 2001.
Oh, okay. Place your bets. Yes.
Yeah. So it's 2003. So it's made in 2003, but the quality and the CGI of it is so good that if someone said, oh, that was made in 2013, 2014, I would have believed them. And it really stuck with me because I think that it's so funny that such a well-made film in the sense of it's aged really well. And I the whole reason I find it so funny is because this whole film franchise is based on a ride. It's based on a ride.
I really love that that's the most successful version of that working, because we went to the original ride at Disneyland and then the idea of making a film off a ride and not the other way around, it can't end well, and yet here is a case where it did.
Well, I think it's funny because I think if you stacked it up against each other, there's been more successful films based on rides than there have been adaptations of video games into films, which I just think is so funny.
That's true. That's true.
But anyway, it got me thinking about the queerness of pirates, because I know that Johnny Depp, though he is, I don't know, are you on the side of Johnny or Amber? That's a different podcast episode.
I feel like there's not even a side.
There's no side. I'm on the side of the dogs that they tried to get into Australia.
No, Johnny Depp is not someone that I would look up to in any way as an upstanding person.
No, but he's probably taller than you, so in that sense you would.
I would.
Yeah, but anyway, I mentioned him only because he did, say once that every single character he's ever played, he has played through the lens of that character is gay. Have you heard that before?
I have, yeah, I really have. And I kind of wonder about it because
Jack Sparrow, have you seen that guy?
Yeah,
Love what he brings to the table.
Yeah.
But so rewatching Pirates of the Caribbean, thinking about Johnny Depp and his description of how he portrays and characterizes these characters that he embodies through his acting, did get me thinking about the queer history of pirates. So that is what I'm bringing to you today. Now,
okay.
When I was thinking about pirates, I think pirates, to me at least, exist in an ephemeral sense, in that when I think about the history of pirates, I actually don't know when it began. What made these people just start being pirates? When did pirating really begin? Because I feel like we have this they kind of almost through Pirates of the Caribbean have been fantasized and removed from actual history.
Yes.
Because I think for a lot of the time growing up, I didn't realize that pirates were real. I just thought they were in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right. I feel like I knew that they were real because I was very, very into pirates, deeply for many years. They were my number one thing, and I'm so glad that my parents were the kind who really fanned the flames of whatever odd interest I had at the time. But they took me to the Maritime Museum all the time.
This,
yeah. So I do know an awful lot about pirates.
Okay, see, I was a medieval kid.
No.
I know, and you were a pirate kid. So I grew up thinking that pirates weren't necessarily real and that it was just sort of fantasy in a way. So I personally don't know much about the history of pirates until I researched for this episode. And I just want to bring us a little bit up to speed. I want to set the tone, and then I want to tell you about a story of two pirates, two potentially queer pirates. Let's look at what pirating is and what it means to be a pirate. Now, when you look at the description of what it
you
actually—
wouldn't steal a car.
You wouldn't steal a car. Or would you? So the music to that ad is so deeply ingrained in my mind. The concept of being a pirate is pretty simple. It's basically someone that uses the sea to transport themselves on. And you have to combine your mode of transportation with the act of stealing. So that's basically the equation of being a pirate.
Okay, so when you told me that you were doing pirates, having researched a lot into piracy and its history for the Rainbow History class book, out now, but I thought, you're not going to be able to shock me. But then like you came in straight away and you found like the mathematical equation of what qualifies of a pirate. Yeah. And that's not something that I've ever heard about. And I also think it's, maybe unfairly distilling the distilling the magic of a pirate into a simple logical equation when really a pirate is so much more than the sum of its parts.
Well, I'm not here debating that. All I'm telling you is if you want to be able to identify a pirate, this is an easy jumping off point.
So are you saying that by that standards, somebody who robs a bank and drives the getaway car is a pirate?
No, they'd have to be on a boat, and the bank would have to be on a coastal town or like.
Okay, so it has
similar.
to be boat related.
It's boat related. So it's it's on the water. It's like a boat related thing. Okay, you have to. If there's water, there's boat. Or whatever, I guess any kind of flotation device is technically a boat, plus stealing, pillaging, that sort of thing. So that's the basic equation of a pirate. So when you think about
Vikings are pirates.
Well, technically some of them would be, not all of them, because Vikings were—
Not all pirates are Vikings, but all Vikings are pirates.
No. No.
All right. Nah, I'm just gassing you up.
You're just confusing me now. I don't know what am I talking about, pirates or Vikings? Because technically they are two different things. But you can okay, listen. I'll say it like this. Some Vikings would have engaged in piracy, but their core identity was a Viking because a Viking has their identity based in like where they grew up, like their country of origin, because Vikings came from particular countries. Pirates,
I'm a descendant of them according to Ancestry.
Yeah, pirates, that's more of like a job title. It's more of like a job title. It's more of like a
career.
Yeah, it's like a career, right? You can be a career pirate, or you can.
This is the problem. It's like we can't keep over-identifying with our vocation. That is how we get burnout, and I am worried about the pirates becoming burnt out if they continue to identify as part of their mode of income.
Yeah, no, that's and listen, we don't have enough time, but if we did, I'd continue talking about this. Let's press on though, and let's flesh out the world of pirates. Okay, we're looking at pirates. Now, there were pirates in, say, ancient Greece because there were a group and a band of people who would seize cargoes of grains and olives and olive oil from Roman ships, because a lot of the time this stealing of cargo has to do with like intercepting trade routes and things like that. So this is why, between Greece and Rome, pirates existed trying to steal olive oil.
I mean, that stuff's good.
Yes. And we're actually looking at the years between the 1650s and the 1730s, which is usually called the Golden Age of piracy. Was it that gold? Not too sure.
There was some gold.
But gold
that was not theirs.
No, I guess maybe that's why it was called the Golden Age of piracy. I'm not sure. I don't think it was. I think someone just referred to that period of time as the Golden Age of piracy because there was a lot of pirates at that time.
Yeah.
And I think it was not even like that much of a big deal. I think like someone said it in passing and then everyone was like, oh, that's a good phrase. Let's use it. So
it is. I mean, also like piracy was very connected with the slave trade.
Oh, yeah.
And the Atlantic slave trade was used a triangular route that piracy also used to benefit on.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, there's just not nice stuff happening left, right, and center.
No, terrible time.
Terrible. But I guess when you think about the fact that at this point in time, people weren't generally born into the world of piracy. It was something that you, like a career, like you kind of chose to do, what do you call it? Like a
lifestyle choice.
A lifestyle choice. That's the word I was looking for. That people chose to do. And there was good reason for that. You know, if we think about people who came from England in particular, London was becoming overpopulated at this period in time. There was a lot of like just stuff going on, like overcrowding. Health was not great. I think when was the Industrial Revolution?
1700s.
Yeah, so they were on the precipice of the Industrial Revolution. It was a period in time where like the economy of big, larger cities was sort of benefiting those who were wealthier and richer. Like the class divide was becoming like more severe. And so there were a lot of people that were unemployed. They couldn't support their families.
Yeah.
And I mean, not all of us are cut out for a big city.
At the end of the day. Like when we cut through it, some of us need a life at sea. And that's just true.
It is true. And so there was a portion of people that were like, nah, all right, fellas, I'm out. See you later. And they just walked down to the docks. They got on a ship and they simply sailed away.
I think I'm going to, add you some context. I just had to double check the dates here. But this was also a kind of a weird time because it was post-plague.
Yes, I was going to say, yeah.
So 1665 was kind of like the last plague.
Yeah.
So this was a time of like rebuilding, rapid, population expansion, things like that. So yeah, I just had to double check that and then flex on my date fact.
Yeah. So a life like this was quite, I wouldn't say aspirational, but it was kind of like, it was in people enchanted by this sort of like lifestyle because it allowed people to take some kind of control over their life when they feel like, on land, it was sort of hard to do that because of like, I guess how society was functioning. You had the option to travel. You had the option to like, I guess, just sort of do what you want because I think pirates were at that point in time seen as like a raucous group of people who were just kind of like doing what they wanted. And so this is why, many people took up the life of piracy or got themselves on a pirate ship and were a pirate for a time just so they could like restart their family in a different place. And so
interesting. I mean, I think that something that I have always been interested in about pirates, and I guess it's kind of a language thing, but when we look at pirates, some of them, you could be an illegal pirate, I guess, but you could also be engaging in that same behavior on behalf of the British Crown.
Yeah.
Which would make you also a pirate, objectively speaking, but like an above board pirate or illegal pirate, which obviously has heaps of kind of problematic connotations from the time. So you can be, you could go and you could join, the British Navy really, or, and act as a pirate there and then jump ship literally and then go and be an illegal pirate.
Yeah. So it was like kind of the Wild West, but on the seas. So the wild seas, I guess you could say. Yeah. And when we say like you could, this was kind of like a men's only thing and like most.
Oh, like everything is so much fun.
I know. So this whole concept of piracy was only really accessible to men. And I think it's so funny because I think of the show, I've literally forgotten the name of it because I have What We Do in the Shadows stuck in my head.
Black Seas.
No.
Sails. Black Sails.
No, Our Flag Means Death.
Our Flag Means Death.
Yeah. And it's really funny because the main guy in that show, and I'm just blanking now because I didn't write it in my show, like in the notes. So I'm just pulling from the back of my brain. But one of the protagonists in the show, I don't know his name. I'm going to Google his name. I don't want to offend people. I think his name is Steve. It's not Steve. It's Steed Bonnet. Sorry. Close to Steve. And he just like gets so stressed by his like home life and like having like being like a kind of upper class guy, having a wife and kid. He gets so stressed. He's like, I'm going to just be a pirate. Essentially, like I'm watering down the wonderful
his inner world. Yeah.
Yeah. But so lots of people kind of just like piecing out of their life and going and becoming a pirate. And for the most part, this was a man's world. This was a thing that only men could do because men were only allowed on ships. Women generally weren't allowed. Sometimes, in some cases, they were allowed on as a cook, or they were like a traveling sex worker. But in general, they weren't allowed to be aboard as part of the crew.
Is that because they were considered weaker and not pulling their weight, or because they were considered like a sexual distraction for the men, or like would make them angry?
Well, this is really highly debated, and this is one of the wormholes that I got into when I was researching for this, because people were asking about it, same as I, and what the general consensus was, there isn't really a clear answer, because there is this strong line of academic like wormholing that wants to look at how we perceived sex and gender pre-18th century, 19th century forms of it. So like pre-modernity. And therefore it's really hard to get a strong sense of like how women or like non-men were viewed, because there's like some line of thinking, and I want to do an episode on this, some line of thinking that like there was only one sex and women were the inferior version or like an underdeveloped man. And therefore they were like inferior and didn't belong, blah, 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 blah. Like you can just like name any misogynistic phrase and it belongs there. But like, or it was sort of that they were this sort of distraction. And it could be like it's not one or the other. It's probably both. But yeah, so it's kind of like one of those things. No one's really sure what it was, but that was just a place of women, unfortunately, at the time. They were minimally seen on ships. But what this
That's really sad.
I know, it is really sad. But what this did lead to.
More women on ships.
But what this did lead to was a great story that I want to share with you today, which is the story of Anne Bonny and Mary Read.
I'm so excited to hear you tell me this, because I love this story and I love both of them. And it is, when I was researching, I didn't get for the book, I didn't get as much space within the book to like go as deeply into their story. So I actually haven't gone much more deeply into their backstory, as I'm sure you have. So I'm on the edge of my swivel chair.
Okay, because I'm going to take you on a journey. Okay. All right. A lot of this, and I will say, comes from just one source, because it's kind of really, again, hard to collate. These people were like rolling around in the water. All right. We don't really truly know 100% of the facts. A lot of this story about their lives comes from an account that's titled A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates. That's Pyrates.
Yes,
so
I know it.
That's where it comes from. It's an account that was detailed in 1724. So it is around the time that they were alive, which means that it's probably a little bit more credible than someone retroactively trying to piece together documents and such. But let's start with Anne Bonny, who is the main character of our story. Anne Bonny was born to a man named William Cormac.
Okay.
And she was born out of an affair, because he had an affair with his maid.
Okay.
So Anne's mother was a maid, and this was obviously devastating. This was like,
yeah, she's illegitimate,
rocked the community, I'm sure.
The daughter of sin.
The wife of William was like, you're a sinner, Will, and left. So she's gone. And William was like, what am I going to do? I have this illegitimate child with my maid.
This is classic dudes not having foresight.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess he kind of did. I can't attest to his character, but what he did was, well, I guess this is the bare minimum, as we say a lot of the time when we go to defend
I'm feeling
men.
this is bare minimum. Like, I'm unlikely to be impressed by what he's brought to the table.
No. Listen, he decided to keep Anne and allow her to live with him.
What a dude.
I know.
Incredible. Dad of the year.
Had Anne stay in the house, so like, as you should with the kid, as long as you're able to care for them.
Where was Anne's mum?
Anne's mum, well, she died, actually.
What? When? Where did you put that? Well, she died.
Well, I was getting there.
Oh, okay.
This happens all the time. Every time you interject. It's
Every time you do a story on a topic that I know, I want to get in it.
Where's the death, Rudy? Give me the death. Okay, listen, I'm going to lay it out for you. Anne's mother, Mary, who was the maid, died when Anne was a teenager.
Got it.
She died in 1711. And around this point in time, Anne was becoming, quote unquote, fierce and with a courageous temper. Now, the preamble to this, which is where I was wanting to walk us through, was that in Anne's youth, before she became a teenager, had to be concealed and re-emerged into society not as William's illegitimate child, but as another family member. And the method in which this was done was by making her dress as a young boy.
Cool. Okay. Yep. Great.
So William, her father, dressed her as a boy to make sure people did not know that it was he had an illegitimate child with his maid.
I just don't understand why she couldn't have dressed however she wanted and he still could have been like, that's a cousin.
I don't know when she stopped dressing as a boy. I'm not sure when she because the thing is, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing and we don't have much detail on, she did dress as a boy as a young child. She became a teenager. And then what we know from there is that she married and she began traveling. And that's when her life of piracy began. But there was a period where she stopped dressing as a boy. She dressed as a woman.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure why or how or whether there was more oh, I'm not actually that young boy, I'm a woman. I don't know how that transition happened, when the smokes and mirrors dropped, but it did. So at some point she dressed as a woman again, got married, and then set off for New Providence, which is now known as Nassau, which is in the Bahamas. And her husband, James, had a career as what was called a snitch. And this is where he was turning pirates into the governor and collecting bounties for turning in pirates.
I can see why he's called a snitch.
Yeah. So that was his job. Now, because Anne was traveling with him around the Bahamas while he was doing this as work, she began taking up a part in the community by going to saloons and being raucous, in these coastal towns. She was
doing her bit.
She was doing her bit. She loved to wave around an axe. She liked to hold a gun. She was just kind of having some fun. All right. Girls just want to have fun and she's living by that.
Yeah, I love that.
Eat, pray, loving her way around the Bahamas.
Yes.
If eat, pray, loving involved murder. So that was what she was doing. I don't know whether her husband was aware of this, whether he was supportive. I'm going to say he was, because that's what I want to believe, but I'm unsure. And in her time seducing and flirting with these pirates as they came in and out of these saloons and these pubs and bars and whatnot, Anne met someone called John Calico Jack Rackham.
I know the name Calico Jack.
A lot of people will, because he's one of the most prominent and prolific pirates of this time. And she apparently was interested in him because of his garish way of dressing. This guy loved a feather. He had a wonderful array.
He had the red hat with the feather in it, right? That was his whole thing of...
Yes.
And he was kind of a captain, Johnny Depp's captain. What was it in Pirates of the Caribbean?
Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, Jack Sparrow was... partially based on the style of Calico Jack, right, with his hat?
Yes. But then I would say Captain Feathersword from The Wiggles is the most accurate.
It's true. The reason it took me so long to get to Jack Sparrow was because Captain Feathersword is what came to mind.
Yeah. But Calico Jack really set the style tone for what we envisage pirates wearing, which he was really not. He was an outlier. Calico Jack had a strong sense and developed sense of style, whereas a lot of pirates weren't wealthy enough to invest in their wardrobe like that, or they just didn't care, because I think Calico Jack he cared a lot about his clothes. So anyway, Anne loved this about him, thought it was amazing, loved his clothes, loved what he brought as a pirate, and so she joined his crew. And
so just left her snitch of a husband to continue snitching in the Bahamas.
Yeah, she was basically like, I guess, radicalized by these pirates and left her snitch of a husband behind.
I kind of get it. But
I mean, I get it too. Like if a guy with a great hat came along, yeah, for sure.
Especially when you're married to a career snitch.
Yeah, pretty boring. Like what a loser. Anyway, like whatever. She did join this crew. She joined as Rackham's lover and helpmate. So helpmate, not really sure what that is, just helping the mates out. But she did dress as a woman during this time. It wasn't as if she like boarded this ship and had to like wear men's clothing because women weren't allowed on board. She was able to board as his sort of like lover or sort of like as kind of part of his entourage almost. However, when they were in engagements with other ships, she did put on traditional men's clothing in that, she wore a loose tunic, short trousers and a sword hitched to her side, as well as a brace that had a pistol tucked into it.
Literally sounds like you're describing your own wardrobe.
I know.
Minus the pistol.
I know. And a small cap perched atop a thicket of dark hair.
Okay. And the dark hair. But the cap perched atop it checks out.
It checks out. And this was because it could have been for like a myriad of reasons. Number one, like if they were engaging with like maybe something that was more formal, like a governorship or something, if they had, because women weren't allowed on board, like there may have been an issue where like that kind of left them vulnerable to be like harder consequences to come upon them. It could have been like a sort of strength in numbers sort of thing where she just sort of stood in as like a human body so that, another pirating ship would be less likely to attack. Like there's a lot of reasons why she would have done it. That's what she did. And also she loved to swing a sword. Like, and I think that at any given opportunity, she should be allowed to. So
I also think it, women's dress at that time, not super practical for sword swinging, like not super comfortable, not super practical.
Yeah.
I do think that,
I do laugh at the thought though that when they saw a ship approaching, someone would have called out like, yeah, there's a ship coming. And then she's like, shit, fuck, I can't find my fucking pants. Oh, where are they gone? Quick, like close the door, Jack, close the door. I'm not dressed. Like
that's
I'm gonna change.
Yeah, she had to have a permanent dressing room just to quickly get into
or like a quick change.
Wardrobe.
Yeah. Like I just imagine her like, quick guys, like John, quick, come over here. I need someone to help me. Like
yeah, it's true. I mean, because it's not like it was easy to get in and out of their women's dress at the time.
Yeah,
you needed a hand.
I mean, you did. I mean, there was corsets and whatnot. Being on a ship in like 3 layers of skirts is like not my ideal way of being on a ship.
No, I'll say.
No, I want like those like shoes that like are kind of sticky so that you don't like fall over.
You'd
what are they called?
Work well on a pirate ship. I also think scurvy would get you.
I think it would.
On the other hand, I think I'm robust enough for life at sea.
I think you are, but you also do have a deep-seated desire to work on a ferry, so
I do love boats.
Yeah.
I love boats. And I think that's interesting because I've always loved boats.
I think that you should need to explore that. I want to see that come out a little bit more with you.
Yeah, it's true. If there's an opportunity for me to go on a ferry or a barge, I will take it.
Oh my God, we should go on a ferry across the bay.
Yeah, I would love that.
What about if we go on the Spirit of Tasmania?
I would love that. I've been on it and I loved it.
I would actually love to go on that again. I've only been on it once.
Yeah, I think if there's a boat.
We can talk about boats later. Let's continue with talking about how Anne met Mary.
Okay.
According to this account of Anne and Mary's life, it's sort of dubious as to how they met. Right. However, there is a version of it in which Calico Jack's ship conquered the ship that Mary was on somewhere in the West Indies. And so Mary was taken prisoner onto Calico Jack's ship and therefore was able to meet Anne Bonny. I almost said eat, so. That was a slip there. I don't know. So after this, Anne took off her trousers. It sounds
and
really
ate.
Bad, and ate.
Okay. she took off her trousers and ate.
She took off her trousers. She put back on her female clothes, and I say female clothes because like she just put on a dress. What can I say? She put on a dress in an attempt to seduce some of the other people that had come on board. And one of these other people were Mary.
Right.
And I know what you're thinking. She was trying to seduce another woman. Incorrect. because Mary on another ship, living another life, was doing exactly the same thing as Anne was doing.
No.
She was also cross-dressing and she was also hiding as a man.
Whenever they saw another ship.
Yeah, this is basically the same thing.
So Anne on Calico Jack's ship, quick dressing room every time we see another ship. Same thing's happening on another ship with Mary.
Yes.
Obviously it's worked well because Mary was able to get into her masculine attire in time to be captured by Calico Jack.
Yes.
Right.
So Mary dressing as a guy has come on board. Anne has gone, I have an opportunity to seduce these prisoners for whatever reason. I'll go put my dress back on. Comes out.
I mean, it's kind of nice, when you're like capturing or like conquering another ship that then you're like, great, I'm going to seduce these captives.
Yeah. I mean,
what a welcome.
In this moment of seduction.
Okay.
Mary was probably quite afraid of what Calico Jack perhaps had in store in terms of torture or killing.
Right.
And so she, in a moment of panic, was like, hang on. I'm a woman. Like, don't hurt me. Don't do something bad. I'm a woman. And showed her chest to Anne to prove that Mary was a woman. And Anne was like, holy shit, so am I. And so they became quick friends and they bonded.
Wait. But she was in a dress. Anne was in a dress. So Anne was looking like a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, so when Anne was like, holy shit, so am I, that was just stating the obvious.
Yeah, it was stating the obvious.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
right,
it would
cool.
basically just be like, oh my God,
she
another
wasn't
woman.
like revealing they weren't both dressed as men.
Yeah,
okay.
what I meant to say was like, oh my gosh, another woman.
Yeah, here we both are. Two women.
Two women on a ship. And so Anne vowed to keep Mary's secret and they became friends. And according to some sources, they also became lovers.
Interesting.
So I'm going to believe that they were.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons to suggest that they might have been. I mean, like, obviously it started at a point of kind of seduction.
Well, that's the thing. I'm like, yeah. But also it's like, why not? I hate it when people are like, oh, you don't know, like, don't stop being delusional, like, oh. And I'm like, okay, but why not? Like, why is your belief that they weren't so much more right than my belief that they were gay?
Well, and I also think like, for this period of time and in this environment, there were no other women. So they had a shared experience and a way of relating to each other and a close relationship that, like, when, on land, I don't know, might have been a friendship, but remembering that there's like an entirely different dynamic or a version of society on board ships, like you sort of not wedded to any social norms that you'd have on land. So why not?
Yeah. And as we've spoken about before, like the concept of platonic friendship had a drastically different meaning and different expression back prior to the 20th century. So we don't know how their friendship even looked or what that meant to them or how they expressed that. So even that, in that sense, they could have been doing things that we would perceive as gay or would like make people go, oh, actually I am queer because I do that. Whereas back then for them, like that might have just been like a straight thing to do.
It's not like being queer was a option, you know, for everyone. So again, they would have been unlikely to label what they were doing as friendship or anything otherwise. However, I think you could reasonably say that in that environment, there's obviously enough of a connection and care between them that, Anne was like, I'll keep your secret. Because remembering this was like this is sort of another ship.
Yeah.
Anne has the power. Her bestie, Calico Jack, runs the ship. So like there's obviously, she is sort of in a sense betraying her loyalty to Calico Jack by taking on Mary's secret and keeping it. So you would suggest that there was a level of care and affection there to motivate her to do that.
Yeah.
Plus, like, obviously they were getting it on, like, wouldn't you?
I mean, yeah. So I want to take a time out for a second and just look at the concept of cross-dressing and hiding and concealing your identity as a means to like either have a career, leave a previous life and live one that you prefer that's on the seas, or being in like more, men only spaces as a woman, and how that would have been realized and actually followed, like actioned, because a lot of people online, when I was looking this up, were kind of like, oh, but how would they, like, they would have known that she was a woman, like, like, that kind of like crap. And I was just like, no, like, I think there's like more that goes into this that we're not thinking about. I think we have to think about the life expectancy of these people and really consider that, yes, we do think of pirates and think of them as bearded, old, scraggly men, which some of them were, but a lot of them were like in their late teens, early 20s. Because like the life expectancy and the mile, like as we talk, we'll talk about it in an episode coming out next week, the milestones were different for these people. And so they were like living this part of their life way earlier than perhaps we would envisage a modern person doing.
Right.
And so they were very young. So when we think about, did they have facial hair, would have been strange to be around someone that didn't have facial hair? No. So for her to not have facial hair, that wasn't really a big defining factor as to whether someone thought that she was a man or a woman.
I also think what we consistently have seen in history and how that's changed now is because we're in a moral panic around cross-dressing or, gender nonconformity in general, trans people. There's a sense that everyone's kind of on the lookout for somebody lying about their gender or trying to trick us into thinking they're a gender that they're not really, that kind of fear-mongering that's happening, particularly in coming out of the US and also being followed by, Australia, the UK, other Western countries. So I think that's interesting when we put that lens on the past, when actually that moral panic wasn't there at that time. So no one would assume or be suspicious that someone was cross-dressing.
Yeah.
So I think you do get that thing of like, why would you assume that that person is cross-dressing? There's no reason to on the surface. It's only now at this period of time, and there have been other times previously, but there's only at this period of time that we're kind of have this innate gender suspicion.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I mean, yeah, for sure. And then also like on top of that, pirates their physicality were like really, like it was really particular. Like they were either emaciated from being starved and having scurvy, or they were like very muscular from like,
hoisting the mainsail.
Yeah, and like fighting and all that sort of stuff. And so for Mary in particular, who spent more time as a man and living as a man, like she was documented to have been quite unwell and like quite emaciated, which would have ceased her menstrual cycle, for example. So there wouldn't have been that sort of thing that she had to conceal. And she would have probably not been looking like great. Anne and Mary are having this close friendship. Now to Calico Jack, he knows who Anne is. He knows that sometimes she fronts as a man, but to him, Mary is a man 24/7. So he starts to get jealous of Anne and Mary's friendship. And one day he is said to have burst into their cabin and intended to slit Mary's throat because of jealousy. Like, stay away from my woman. Sort of vibes.
My God. See, you can't even escape toxic masculinity on the high seas.
No. And this is why they would have been chasing the bear.
They literally could have, had a conversation about it.
I know.
But yeah, that's it.
Somehow.
You want a bear on a pirate ship more than a man.
Exactly. But somehow this got de-escalated and Calico Jack.
It's good to know that he could be de-escalated in that moment.
And it was reasoned that the secret would be kept hidden from the crew and Mary could continue to live as...
I really want to know how that was de-escalated. Maybe someone took his hat or
I don't
something.
know. I don't know, but I really...
Or someone really talked him around.
I know. I really want to know. Like, that's something that keeps me up at night. I'm like, how did that unfold? Oh.
And like, what can we learn about de-escalating other jealous men from whatever it was that Mary and Anne said?
I know. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe there was a bargain. Maybe they enacted parlay.
Who knows?
I don't know. But everything was all right. And Mary was continued to be treated as like an equal in whatever sense, I guess that meant, in terms of her playing a part on board. However, now we find ourselves in the year of 1720. and it was nearing midnight on October 22nd when Anne and Mary were on the deck of the boat on the ship when they noticed a mysterious sloop.
A mysterious what?
Sloop.
What?
A sloop.
What is a sloop?
It is a single sail ship. So I want you to Google it because
I'm going to Google this. What is a sloop?
A sloop is said, and this is what Google says, a sloop is a sailboat with a single mast, typically having only one head sail in front of the mast and one mainsail aft the mast, which is just like basically it's kind of a small ship. It's like one of those ones that
it's like a sailing boat.
It's kind of like a sailing boat.
Oh, you know what? A sloop is like when you are drawing a ship or a boat when you're a child and you do a kind of upside down trapezium on the bottom, a stick, and then a triangle sail. Yes. That's a sloop.
It is. Historically, it is used as a word to like, it's like a small ship of war, you know. So in this case, though, it was a governor ship. So was that a ship of war? I don't think so because they weren't really in a war. But there you go. That's a sloop. So a sloop was glacially gliding towards and alongside this pirate ship that Anne and Mary were aboard. And they realized that it was one of the governor's vessels. And so the captain of this ship, Jonathan Barnett, ordered the pirates to surrender.
Hang on, but aren't the pirates on a big old pirate ship and then this guy's on a tiny sloop?
Well, I'm not sure how big the pirate ship was. I think the Black Pearl from the Pirates of the Caribbean really, again, warped our perception of what a pirate ship was like.
Okay.
Yeah, because like pirate crews were generally quite small. Like you think of the Black Pearl, you think of like Blackbeard, things like that. Like you think like, oh my God, there's like 50 people on this ship. And it's like, not often, not really. Like that's why they were kind of famous or like became mythologized because like they were sort of like one in 100. A lot of the pirate ships generally were quite small because, you know, pirates being mostly out for themselves, while they did have sometimes a strong allegiance to a crew, often like that crew was small and the allegiance, had it been a larger crew, was not as strong as a small crew. So you had members coming and going and dying and whatnot when they went into battle. So
bit of plank walking, that kind of thing.
Well, actually planks, they didn't really have them. That's actually a myth.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, but there's not that much drama. Again, like this is what I'm saying. This is why I didn't think that pirates are real because there's so much drama and like theatrics to it. There was no plank. Do you really think pirates on these smaller boats were going, all right, guys, we're going to kill someone today and we've got to get the good plank out?
Yeah, they probably just like shoot them or chuck them out to sea.
Like throw them overboard. They weren't even wasting bullets on these people. They were just like pushing them overboard or like sending them overboard like after being captured. So anyway, back to the story. Some myth busting in there. But this small ship has come up alongside their pirate ship. Not sure of the scale of these two ships, but Jonathan Barnett, the captain of the sloop, has ordered these pirates to surrender. Mary calls upon her crew or like the crew she's with to come and fight these other people. A few of them do join, but she's not happy with the amount of people that have come to help her fight off these other guys, and she's getting upset, and she apparently yells, if there's a man among ye, you'll come up and fight like the man ye are to be. So she's really like trying to rally the troops here. She's trying her best to get them to fight off these.
And she's framing herself as the most manly.
Well, that's kind of how this story and this account retells it, as if she has been the person to decide the big man, the guy to start to fight back. And so no one responded. Like none of her crew responded.
What are they doing? Like crocheting or something?
I don't know, maybe, which is so funny because I think there is a character in our Flag Mean Seth that does do like arts and crafts.
So they're just like doing their thing and they're like, nah.
Yeah, they were just like, nah, like
you good.
Like I don't know why
they could have been doing something else. They could have been something happening on the
starboard side.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know why they didn't decide to fight back, but they just weren't really interested. I think that maybe, I guess someone I saw online said that maybe they weren't really believing that there was a ship trying to like get them to surrender.
Okay, so maybe it's a big pirate ship and the sloop's very small.
I don't know. Some people were saying that it was potentially they saw how many people were on this governor's boat and were like, nah, you can fight them off yourself. Like no one's really sure. But when her crew didn't respond and didn't want to fight with her, she decided to just shoot at them. And
at the crew or at the boat?
At the crew. And
at her own crew instead of just shooting at the people she was trying to fight.
Yeah, so she shot down into the hold, which is like the inside of the ship where you can be, and she just killed one of them. She just shot down there like fuck you, I guess, pew pew, and then shot them, and then unfortunately did not successfully fight off this governor boat, and so they were captured.
Oh my God! But she tried pretty hard. She was really let down. Like there was no teamwork on Calico Jack's ship.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, and I'm just thinking if they only had maybe one professional development day, they could have circumnavigated this, but unfortunately that wasn't the case for them. So I guess that's a lesson learned. 10 days after Captain Calico Jack's trial, which was November 18th, I believe, Mary and Anne stood trial. So Captain Jack's, he's dead. He's been hung.
Been executed. Yeah, okay.
Hanged, sorry. He's been executed. And so Mary and Anne were what?
Sorry, I was just thinking he's been hung. Sorry, and then, okay, carry on.
So Mary and Anne stood trial in Jamaica, and they were both pleading not guilty to the charges that were put upon them, and except they were found guilty.
Okay.
And they were sentenced to be hanged. They weren't executed because apparently they were both with child. They got away with not being executed because they were pregnant. Both of them were pregnant.
We don't know for sure though whether or not they both actually were pregnant.
No, well, and this is the whole thing, and this is where I'm like, I don't. Again, there's like so little detail, and this is why it's so mythologized, I suppose, because it's like the account said that they were both quick with child, which means pregnant. But the thing is like, how could you even prove that? Like, I think at this point in time, they still thought the world was flat. Like, no, I'm joking, but like the medical, yeah,
they wouldn't have been able to necessarily prove it, and it would have all been very sort of tied up in notions of kind of Christianity, and I think just if they were a bit bloated, that would probably be sufficient. And whether or not it was pretty normal and very common, then to lose pregnancies, and there was not brilliant health standards and things like that, so it wouldn't be suspicious necessarily if them being pregnant didn't result in the birth of a child. Yeah. So, I mean, that's it's also not unlikely that they both could have been pregnant, I think that is something that probably did happen on the ships as well. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Who knows? Like, we don't know at all. Like, it's just all speculation, but they did say in defense of their sentencing that, whoa, guys, like we can't do that. We're pregnant. And which I kind of, if they were just like making that up, what a great bit of quick thinking. Hey, I think it's good. I mean, you got to use what tools are available to you, and a white lie like that, power to him. So that's really the story of Anne, Bonny, and Mary. So what happened to them in the end though? Did they go to jail, or were they set free? No one really knows, because I guess their legacy ended after that. Yeah, because it was the last source we would have been that trial transcript. Yeah. I didn't want to died in prison in the next year, but Bonny was released because of her father's influence, likely. Yeah. Well, I didn't want to end on a sad note like that, which is why I left their deaths out, and I just really wanted to keep their legacy alive, Hannah. But I guess we'll talk about their deaths. Sorry for the live fact check. No, it's so fine. So that's kind of. Whoa. What? Hang on. What? It is, I have just found here that Anne Bonny was in prison, but she did likely give birth to a child in 1720 or 1721. Wow. And there's no record of what happened to that child. Oh my gosh. Well, 1 or 2 ain't bad. It's true. At least one of them apparently wasn't lying. But what's interesting and what's kind of queer about this story, I guess, because we didn't really stop and unpack a lot of it, is, the cross-dressing is really interesting. And I think it's like we spoke about earlier, the whole
expectations of gender and what you could get away with and when and why is really interesting. And I think that the speculation that Anne and Mary were in a relationship is also really interesting. There was another small account which we didn't go into because I kind of wanted it to just be about Anne and Mary, was that Calico Jack was also kind of involved intimately with them, which is where some people draw the conclusion of how they got pregnant was because of their relations with him. But I was like, Calico Jack, like you can have you have your time with your wardrobe. I want to talk about these ladies. So
I think so. I mean, yeah, and obviously there was some kind of concession given to Calico Jack when he found out that, you know, both of them were women, and so it would follow that was the concession. But I think in general, like when we look at the period of time, things like it was a very hard life on the ship, obviously. There was a lot of violence. I think when we look at sexual violence and, you know, the prevalence of it and, you know, how we engaged or how people engaged with the gender and how they, you know, what they were trying to avoid or like do was often very separate to their desire or sense of self.
Yeah.
Having said that though, if you were, and what we do know is, you know, if you were somebody who did not fit the mold of society at the time on land, you would be more interested in joining, you know, the life of pirates. So we did see a lot of same-sex attracted pirates. That's, you know, proven. So I think, you know, it would make sense if they both were in a loving relationship, whether or not any of their cross-dressing had anything to do with their gender identity. To your point, we don't know about how they experienced gender internally, but maybe.
And I think the thing is as well, like when I look at these things, and people can say we're drawing conclusions all they want, but the fact is, in a modern sense, we have found relatability in the queer community. We've found relatability to pirates. It's like with anything. And we have interpreted and kind of made our own stories out of that. And that's why people say like pirates are gay, because it is like queer coding with a lot of like modern interpretations of pirates and explicitly as well, like black sails or like whatever, our flag means death.
And so we can always talk about mate letage in an entirely other episode.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, you know, whatever, like it may not have happened. It may have happened. Like who cares? Like what matters is like, you know, having fun. God, can't we just have some fun? But I always kind of get in a gripe about it because I'm like, I hate it when people go, yeah, but it might not have happened. I'm like, and?
I think what I always say to clap back at that as well is kind of we never ever do the same kind of critique of heterosexual people or people that are not cross-dressing, you know. There's a lot of people that, you know, maybe today might identify as trans men, but you wouldn't know because they were wearing women's clothing because they had no other option, you know, in the 1700s. So at the end of the day, like it's always a dance between, yes, we can't impose modern labels on long dead people. However, at the same time, it doesn't make sense to just carry on as if that they weren't there either and not recognize, you know, who they might have been if they were around now, who they might have been then. And that's honestly why we care about history, is to find parts of ourselves in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. We made that deep.
But yeah, so that's pirates. And there's heaps more stories. So there's plenty of opportunity for us to come back and revisit the old golden age of piracy down the line. Maybe I'll even dress up for it next time.
Maybe.
I was tempted, but I didn't this morning. But yeah, thanks so much for listening, and thanks for coming on this journey on the seas with me. And if you enjoyed it, check out our Discord. Head over to the Discord. It's a great little community growing over there. Check out our Patreon. You can always drop us a line over on Instagram. Love chatting to people over there. Other than that, good day.
Please do have a good day or a good evening wherever you're listening from. And until we chat next time, we want to leave you with something to think on, and that is not everything is gay, but there is gay in everything, including on the 7 seas.